Welcome to the first monthly web workshop on Fluke Connect. Today's topic is the Fluke Connect desktop. I will be providing you with an overview of the product. My name is Chaun Carda. I am a Tier 2 Technical Support Engineer and the Fluke lead. First, before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. The session will be recorded. Phones will be muted. Feel free to type questions at any time. Please limit questions to the topic of the workshop, and questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Our agenda for today will begin with an overview of the Fluke Connect desktop product. Then we'll cover profile and setting options, followed by how to download thermal images. Next, we'll cover how to edit thermal images, and finally, we'll cover how to create a thermal image report. We will start with a quick high-level overview of the software and then show each area in more detail. In the Fluke Connect desktop software, there are 5 main areas. The first is the profile options. In the profile options, we've got settings, information, software and updates information, and version information, along with the ability to provide feedback directly to our development team. Next, we have the Tools tab. Here's where customers can connect tools to the Fluke Connect desktop software in order to download measurements or thermal images from those tools to the Fluke Connect desktop software. The third area is the Measurements tab. This is where we can view and edit measurements. The fourth area is the Assets tab. Here we can create, view, and edit asset groups and assets. And the fifth area is the Reports tab. This is where we create and view reports or report templates. Our next section is the Profile Settings and Options section. And this area contains many important pieces of information, so it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with these. To access the profile options, you simply click on the figurehead icon in the upper right-hand corner. So that is right here in the upper right-hand corner next to the number 1 arrow. And that will provide you with a pop-up menu that contains several different desktop settings that we will discuss in further detail. The first of these is the Settings option. So under Settings, under Desktop Settings, we've got 4 elements I'd like to discuss. The first is the Local File Saving Location. This is where your thermal images will be stored on your local PC hard drive. Fluke strongly recommends that you accept the default file structure for optimum performance of the software. The second setting option is the Check for Software Updates option. You can select how often the system checks for updated software automatically. The options are daily, weekly, monthly, or every time you log in. The Check Now button enables you to do an on-demand check to see if there are any updated versions of the software available, and if there are, the system will automatically begin downloading that updated file to your local desktop. The third setting option is the default temperature setting that will be used throughout the software. There are 3 choices available: Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin. This is a frequently asked question for our technical support team. Customers know they need to set the temperature unit on their thermal imager to either Celsius or Fahrenheit, but may not be aware that they also need to make that selection within the desktop software. So if you've selected Celsius on your thermal imager as your default temperature unit, please remember to come into the desktop setting options, select the temperature unit, and also select Celsius so that you're matching your temperature unit between your thermal imager and your Fluke Connect desktop software. The fourth desktop setting is the Synchronize setting. This tells the software whether or not you want to sync the edits and changes to the Fluke Connect cloud or just save them to your local drive. This is an on-off toggle option. This is another frequently asked question from customers. Many prefer not to sync the changes that they've made on the local Fluke Connect desktop to the cloud. And if that is the case, you would want to set your synchronize setting to off. If you do not want to sync your changes to the cloud, that will stop the syncing process. The next option in settings I'd like to discuss is the password option. This works like any other software package. You can enter your current password, enter your new password, and confirm your new password by re-entering it and then clicking save. It's the same for every other software package on the market, but I do like to point this out because it can be difficult to find. It is hidden in the profile options. The other reason I bring this up is because this is the same password that you use in your Fluke Connect mobile app and the Fluke Connect web app. So regardless of which platform you're using, whether it's the desktop, the web, or the mobile, you will enter the same Fluke Connect username and password across all platforms. All right, the next profile option I like to cover is the check for updates option. This performs an on-demand check, system check, to see if there are any other versions of the software available, and will automatically and immediately begin downloading that updated software to your local PC. It does not start the installation process. You do need to double click on the file once it's been downloaded, but it will execute a download on demand. In our case, our software is up to date. The next option is Open Fluke Connect web app. What's great about this is that it enables you to launch the web application and go directly to the Fluke Connect website where you can log in to the web interface. You don't need to remember to bookmark flukeconnect.com or save that in order to access the web application, because you can do so directly from here. And this is a great way to verify once you've made your edits and your files have synced, to verify that those files in the cloud have actually been updated to reflect what you see on your Fluke Connect desktop software. The next option, About Fluke Connect. This, again, is very familiar to those of you who work with software. Anytime you need any kind of additional information about the software you're working with, you go to the About area. And this does, in fact, provide you with the version number of the software that you're currently working on. The reason I point this out is because if you contact the technical support team, they will frequently ask you to verify which version of the software you're currently working on, and that information can be found here under About Fluke Connect. The other reason I like to point this out is because in this section here next to the number 3 arrow, you can see we've got our technical support telephone number as well as our email address. We know there are many divisions within Fluke, and it's not always easy finding the right team to contact for help. But this is the team for any and all Fluke Connect software questions. So whether your questions are about what I'm showing you today, the Fluke Connect desktop software, the Fluke Connect mobile software, or the Fluke Connect web app, if it's Fluke Connect software related, this is definitely the team to call. They will be able to help you. The next profile option I want to look at is the Give Feedback option. And this is the customer's direct line of communication to our development team. If you've got an idea about how to improve our product or a feature request you'd like to have added to the software, please use this option, the Give Feedback option, to contact our development team directly. They read and review every single one of the pieces of feedback they get from customers, and they research that and decide whether or not to include that in the future, in a future product release. So your input is valued, and we do appreciate that. Now, if you use this option to contact the development team to report a bug or an issue or some sort of a problem or question you're having, they will route it to the technical support team, who will then reach out to you to assist you and then escalate that issue if needed. And last but not least, we have the sign out option. And I know it may seem silly to point out the sign out option. It's not that complicated, but the sign out option does actually execute the sign out command. If you click the X in the upper right hand corner right here, that just closes the window for the application. It does not actually execute a sign out. So if the technical support team advises you to sign out and sign back into the software, this is what they mean. They mean click on the profile icon, select the sign out option, let the software log you out, and then go ahead and log back in. That's a good idea for any standard troubleshooting, because it will help resync the files and it will refresh the information on the screen. All right. So that brings us to our next section, which is how to download thermal images to the Fluke Connect desktop. In order to download thermal images to the Fluke Connect desktop, you need to go to the Tools tab in the Fluke Connect desktop software. So we click on the Tools tab and we can see here the number of Fluke Connect tools we have connected right now is 0. But what it does tell us is that we have two connection option methods. We've got a wired connection option and a wireless connection option. For wired connections, we've got two choices, a USB connection or an Ethernet connection. And for wireless, we've got Wi-Fi hotspot, which is where we can do a point-to-point connection between the thermal imager and the PC. We've got Wi-Fi network, which is when the thermal imager and the PC are on the same Wi-Fi network. And finally, we've got Bluetooth connection, which is when you pair your tool to the PC via Bluetooth. So as you can see here in the different options, the USB connection is definitely the recommended option for connection. It's the most stable connection type and it's also the fastest. So once we've selected which option we want to use, what's great about our software is if you click on the little arrow next to the option you've selected, it provides you with detailed instructions on how to use that connection method. Use the included USB cable to connect your tool to your PC, and on the Tools tab, your tool will be listed under Connected Tools. So I simply take my USB cable, the one provided with my thermal imager. I connect one end to my thermal imager. I connect the other end to my PC. And in a matter of minutes, my tool will be recognized by my Fluke Connect desktop software. Now, I do advise you to be patient. This is not instantaneous. It does take the software a couple of minutes to recognize the tool. And if it doesn't immediately recognize the tool, go ahead and unplug the cable and plug it back in to give it another opportunity to do so. If that doesn't work, it's a good idea to shut down some of your other software and reboot your computer. Then just launch the Fluke Connect desktop again, log in, and reconnect your USB cable. So I know that I have anywhere from 10 to 20 software applications open on my computer at any one time. I've got my email, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, so on, and that can cause an issue with being able to detect the tool. So I shut down all my software and I retry, unplug and replug in the cable. And if that doesn't work, then I do a reboot and then don't start up anything except for the Fluke Connect desktop software and then connect my tool again. And oftentimes that resolves the issue for me. I know that's worked for many of our customers as well. So in order to download the images from your thermal imager to your Fluke Connect desktop software, you simply click the download button, which brings us to a couple of options. We can either download all of the images from our thermal imager to our desktop software or select which files we want to download. In our case, we're going to go ahead and select which files we want to download. You can see on this screen, we have the ability to filter the number of images we're seeing. We can also sort them based on date. So that gives us the ability to find what we're looking for to download much more quickly. We select the file that we want to download or the thermal image by clicking on the checkbox next to the file name. And once we've selected all the files we want to download, in our case it's 210 and 209, we simply click the download button to execute that command. Now, this is a new feature available in one of our latest software releases. Your images will automatically be downloaded to your Fluke account folder on your local PC, but you can select a different folder if you want. At this time, we recommend accepting the default location for best performance, but you can see this is the demo account that I'm logged in as, RileyRussell@fluke.com, and this is where the files will be downloaded to. So I click the OK button. And the next screen is the measurements downloaded screen. At this point, we can see where our files were downloaded to, and we can choose one of two options. We can either delete the downloaded measurements from the tool or the thermal imager, or we can cancel. At this point, I say always select the cancel option to keep images on the thermal imager until you verify they are visible in your Fluke Connect account. That's just a best practices tip. It's a way of saving the files on the thermal imager until you've had an opportunity to log into your Fluke Connect desktop to look at the images, to edit the images, maybe to put them in a report. I know that oftentimes I've edited images and don't like the edits I've made, so I'll go back to my tool and re-download those images to my account so I can start over with the image, the fresh image. It's just like saving a backup file or a backup copy of the file on the thermal imager itself. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click cancel. And what that does is that takes us to our next screen, which is the measurement screen. So this is how to verify that the files that we wanted to download from our thermal imager to our Fluke Connect desktop have in fact been downloaded. You can see 209 and 210, those are the two files that I wanted to download, and they are now available on my computer in my Fluke Connect folder, and this happens to be my demo account, so the Riley Russell demo account folder. So those are the two files. Now, for many of you, this may be a new view, something you haven't seen inside the Fluke Connect desktop software before. This is the File Manager view, and this is accessible by clicking on the Measurements tab and clicking the second icon here. This is something that many of our customers have been asking for, many of you, that you wanted the ability to view where the files were from within the Fluke Connect desktop software using an interface that you're familiar with, the File Manager view. And for those of us who've been using Windows, this has been around for a long time, and this works just like the File Manager in Windows, with the exception that it has some additional Fluke Connect desktop related specific features. We'll cover those in a later workshop. All right, so now we've verified that we've transferred the files from our thermal imager to our Fluke Connect desktop software. We can see that they are on our local computer. So that brings us to our next section, which is how to edit thermal images in Fluke Connect desktop software. All right, to edit thermal images, the best way to do that is click on the Measurements tab. I like to use the original view, which is accessible by clicking on the first icon here, because it gives you a preview of the files. The File Manager view is great if you've got multiple files and you're trying to just verify that they've been downloaded and do those types of things. But if I want to select which file I'm going to edit, I want to select the actual image by looking at it, previewing it. Now there are two ways to edit an image. You can either double click on the body of the image, or you can select the edit option from the drop-down list box, which will take you into the image editor. We'll just double click, and that brings us into the thermal image editor. You can see that's where we're in the software, and you can also see that this is the file name that we are currently editing. Now we're looking at the Optimize sub-tab within Thermal Image Editor, where we have the ability to select a different palette. The thermal image was taken using the blue-red palette, but we, as thermographers, can select any palette that will benefit us or present the image in a way that will illustrate the points of the image that we want to show to our customers. We have the ability to change the saturation level, the emissivity, the background temperature. We can adjust the scale to narrow the span to eliminate temperatures that we do not want to include in the image by clicking and dragging the span down. We also have the ability to use the IR Fusion blending scale. Right now we're looking at a full infrared image. If we use the scale, we slide it all the way over, we can actually see the full visible light image. And of course, after we've made changes, don't forget to click the Save button. Our next option available in the editor is the Analyze tab. We click here, and this is really the meat and potatoes of the software. This is where most customers spend their time. Here you can see we have the ability to add custom markers. We can add a point marker, a line marker, a rectangle marker, a circle marker, and so on to anywhere on the image that we want to draw attention to. Or if this is a simple quick edit, we can always use one of the predefined options. We can select hot point, cold point, center point, and these are the center box options. And to add those to the chart, all we'd have to do is simply click the checkbox. All right, our third option is the Notes tab in the Thermal Image Editor. Here is where you can add your comments or feedback or analysis of the thermal image. Your assessment or analysis is part of the value you bring to your customer. So by adding notes and observations related to the thermal image here, directly on the image itself, that information can be presented in the report to the customer. So you can say, I noticed, a hot point and it's been trending hotter the last 2 inspections. Or you can point out maybe drafts in a home if you're doing a home inspection, that type of thing. All of the notes that you add to the thermal images can be displayed in a report, and they are automatically date and time stamped with your username. All right, so now let's use the Fluke Connect desktop software to actually edit an image. I'm going to toggle over to the desktop software, and you can see right now we're currently in the Measurements tab, and we're on the New File Manager view. As I recommended, I'd like to toggle over to the original tile view where we can see a preview of the different images. Here, just a couple of additional things I'd like to point out. We have the ability to filter to narrow our selection of options. So we are right now just looking at the infrared images, but we can view all of the images in our account. We can view just the non-infrared images, so on and so forth. We have the ability to sort based on date, newest to oldest, oldest to newest, and we can also sort based on name, A to Z and Z to A. And last but not least, we can search on the file name. All right, so the next thing I like to show is that for each of the images, we have this little drop-down list box where we can go into edit mode. We'll do that in a moment. We can rename the file. We can email the file. And here it will automatically select the PNG option. So we'll send the file as a PNG file, but we can also select to send the image as an IS2 file. This is great if you have a teammate, a coworker, a manager, and they also have the Fluke Connect desktop software. If you send the file as an IS2 file, every single one of the pieces of data that the thermal imager has captured will get transferred over to them, and they can import that file into their Fluke Connect desktop software account and view that file just as you're viewing it. The next option is the export option. This is great because this enables you to select an alternate image file format. So you can use bitmap, JPEG, PNG, TIFF, so on and so forth. This is useful if you have maybe a coworker or a teammate that does not have the Fluke Connect desktop software and does want to look at the image. And so this will enable them to open the image in something such as Microsoft Paint. This export process will download the image to a local file folder on your computer so that you can retrieve it from there and then email it. All right, we're going to go in and edit this image. So remember I said we can just simply double click. And when we double click, that brings us into the thermal image editor, just like I showed you on the slides. Here's the file name of the file that we're working on, and we're currently in the Optimize subtab. Here is the palette, and as I stated, we selected this option for when we took the thermal image, blue-red, but maybe I want to show this in iron bow instead. That looks like that might show the hot area a little bit more effectively than what I had before with the red-blue. I can also change the emissivity. Maybe if I'm not, say, a professional thermographer, I might not know exactly which emissivity setting is the best, but this is going to help guide me and select the best one to use. So if I'm taking images of iron, sheet, galvanized, burnished, I can use this setting, or I can use any one of these different options available to me to help adjust the image to change it to what will be best representative of the thermal data. All right, next we have the auto scale. And if we deselect the auto scale checkbox down here, which is usually selected by default, this enables us to adjust the scale to narrow the focus and only include the image information that we want on the screen. And as I pointed out in the presentation, we've got the IR Fusion blending option. Right now we're looking at a full infrared, but if we want, we can slide this over. You can see more and more of the visible light images becoming apparent. And here, at this point, you can see that this is in fact the Paine Field substation. So that's what we're looking at here on this particular image. I'm going to slide it back over, and we're going to leave it just enough to where we can see the sign, but still see all of the temperature related data. The other thing I'd like to point out, and I know most of you already know this, but every Fluke thermal image, the IS2 file, contains temperature data for every pixel on the screen. So as I move my mouse around, I can see a different temperature reading for every tiny little section of the screen. All right, so we're not done with our edits yet, so we're not going to use the Save button. We're going to click on the Analyze button. And as I pointed out earlier, we can add individual or customized markers, point markers, line markers, rectangle markers, and we can put those anywhere on the thermal image. Or for our particular presentation today, we're going to keep it simple. We can use some of the default options, hot point, and you can see that that added the hot point temperature right here. We can add a cold point. That added the temperature information up here, and then center point, and that added the information in the center of the screen. Now, our hot point is pretty visible. We can see that marker and that text, but this blue on purple background doesn't look like it's very easy to read. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I want to change the color of my cold point marker. So to do that, I can double click on the cold point marker. You can see I'm looking at the cold point marker here. And I want to change the marker color from this light blue color to, let's see, it's on a purple background. Maybe let's make it white. And then we'll click Apply. That's a little bit easier to read. Maybe we want to reposition the marker so that it's not off to the right. So let's go ahead and edit that one more time, and you can see right now we've got different options on where to place the marker. So let's place it off to the left and click Apply, and now you can see that that temperature data has moved to the left of the marker. All right, and the last feature in the image editor I like to cover is the notes. Again, this is where you can add value by entering in your observation or analysis of the thermal imager. And oops, typo. Let me click the Add button. And you can see I've entered my notes and observation. I'm logged into my demo account, Riley Russell, and it's automatically date and time stamp. If I want to edit this, I can click the pencil icon. And if I decide that I don't want this information included, I could hit the delete icon. Once I've done making my edits, I simply click the Save button. I can see that the date and time stamp for this image has been changed because it saved my changes. And I can exit out of the image editor by clicking the Close button here in the upper right-hand corner. And that brings us back to the Fluke Connect desktop software. That also brings us to the last section of our presentation, which is how to create a thermal image report in Fluke Connect Desktop. So, in order to create a report in Fluke Connect Desktop, you click on the Reports tab, and you click the Create Report button. Once you've clicked the Create Report button, you're presented with a list of predefined report templates. There are 5 available in the system: non-thermal, thermal, building diagnostic, electromechanical. Now in our case, we're creating a thermal report, so we're going to select the basic thermal imaging report. And once we've selected that, then we click the Continue button. At this point, the system prompts us to select which images we want to include in our report. And we do that by clicking the little checkbox next to the file name. So I've selected 5 different images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to be included in my thermal image report. I want to add those measurements to my report. So after I've selected them, I click the Add Measurements button. And that brings us to the report editor. Now, the report editor has 3 main areas that I'd like you to focus on. We've got, on the left-hand side, we've got the report content area, the report content panel. This is where you select the area of the report that you want to work on. All right. And then in the middle area, once you selected, say, cover page, then I can get a preview of what that cover page currently looks like. So if we created the report now and saved it as is, this is what our cover page would look like. We'd have a blank logo, the word Fluke Corporation, a company info placeholder, and this generic name for our title. So what we would want to do is edit the information on the cover page. And we would do so by clicking the area that we want to make a change to. So in this case, I might want to add a logo. So I would click on the logo, and this presents me with the ability to edit that area of the screen. So in the cover page details, you can consider that like your editor panel. I can go in and click the Add button and select an image to add to this particular report. The next section I want to cover is the measurements part of the report. So if we click on the measurements, you'll see that the previous screen has changed. Now we have an actual thermal image to see, the file name for the thermal image. We have image information, so this is information related to the image itself, so the camera serial number, the image range. We also have marker information, hot point information, cold point information, center point, and center box. Now, in order to make changes to this part of the screen, remember, we need to move over to the third panel, which is the measurement display options. And here we can use the check boxes to simply add or remove this information from the preview area. So right now we only have a measurement title selected. That's the file name. If we wanted to, we could add notes, the notes that we typed in during the editing phase. If we wanted, we could also say, show the visible light reference image. This is a frequently asked question we get in technical support. How do I show the visible light image? You simply check this box and it will appear on the screen. We might also want to delete some extraneous information that's just cluttering up our screen. The camera serial number, the DSP version, that may not be information our customers need. So we could deselect that information and have it disappear from our report. All right, that was kind of an overview of the report section. So now I'd like to go into the Fluke Connect desktop software and show you how to create a report. So as I stated, you click on the Reports tab. A couple of additional things I'd like to show you before we go into create a report is that here's a list of all of the reports that I've created that are in my account. From here, I can download the report. This will download a copy of the report to my local PC in this particular folder, and I have the ability to choose a report format. So I can select PDF or Docs. What's great about this option is that I know many of our customers have predefined report templates that they must use. Our software package can create the basic thermal image report. Then you, as the user, can download it as a docs file format and continue editing it using Microsoft Word. You can add any company required elements that you need to add that you cannot do so from within our software using Microsoft Word. You can also email the report. to, say, a coworker, a manager, or a customer, this will launch your email software and send the report as a PDF file. And finally, you can delete your report. The other thing I mentioned previously was templates. Our system provides you with 5 predefined templates: non-thermal, thermal, building diagnostic, electromechanical, and insulation. What's great is that you can create your own thermal report template, or any report template for that matter, simply by using the Create Templates button. Once you've created your own template, it's saved to your account, and you can reuse that template over and over again to expedite the process of building reports. In my reports, I like to add the notes field and the visible light image. Those are not selected by default in our system generated template. So I created my own template that will include automatically the notes and the visible light image. So let's go ahead and go back to the reports subtab. So I've selected reports, report subtab, and create report. And just as I did in the presentation, I want to create a basic thermal imaging report. So I'm going to select that template. Again, if I wanted to, I could select my own template that I created, but for our purpose, we're going to select the system generated thermal imaging template. We click continue, and I want to sort my images based on, to find the images I'm looking for. Let's see. All right, so these are the images that I'd like to add to my report. I'm going to add 3. This 75, 81, and then 74. Now, if I wanted to select all the images for April 17th, I could click this, and you'll see how it automatically selects all those images for that date. That's a great way to expedite the process. If you've got hundreds of images you want to include, or I guess the maximum is 100, but let's say tens of images you want to include, you can do that by clicking on the date. So once you've selected the measurements you want to include in your report, you click the Add Measurement button. And that brings us to the report editor screen, where we have the different areas of the report that we can select to edit. Before I proceed into editing the report, I want to show you these are the 3 images I selected to include in the report on the previous screen. If I decide to delete them from the report, I'm still in editor mode, so I have the ability to do so. I simply click the trash can icon to remove that image from my report. If I wanted to add more measurements to my report, maybe 3 is not going to be enough, I need to add 3 or 4 more, I can click the Add Measurements button. So for now, let's say I want to delete this particular image. And now it's gone from my report. Okay, so let's go back and select the area of the report that we want to edit. We're going to edit the cover page. And we know that we have a blank logo here. So I want to get rid of this blank logo, and I want to add my own logo. I click on the logo to edit, and I can come over to my 3rd panel, which is the cover page details panel, and then I click the add button so that I can select a logo. And now I've got the Fluke Reliability logo on my report. Maybe I want to enter in company information. I want to change that from the default value to enter in our location. So I've just typed in the text that I want to appear on the screen. I can change the font. I can change the size of the font. I can change the color of the font. I'll pick red just to make it stand out. And I'm previewing the changes that I've made on my cover page. One additional area that's very cool for things like the cover page, I have the ability to add additional elements. Right now we have the logo, and then we have a title, and then we have a text box, and we have the report title. So I may want to add additional information. Let's say I want to add my customer's logo. I've got my logo. I want to add my customer's logo. That would be the image widget. So I click my left mouse button, hold my left mouse button down to click and drag this item onto the report cover page. I can position it, and at this point, if I wanted to, I could click Add and go out and find that customer's logo. Now that looks strange for some reason, so the format, I've got the wrong type of file, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. But that is how you can add additional elements to different areas of the report. Let's go ahead and add a date, so click and drag, and maybe a divider line. So click and drag. Oh, that's not centered, so I want to move that up a little. There you go. I can do that with a text box, a header, and a footer as well. All right, I think we're done editing our cover page for now. Let's go to our report summary page. And let's edit our subtitle from the placeholder to an actual report subtitle, Substation Inspection Report. All right, and let's maybe make this blue. All right, and then we'll add a summary. And I won't bother to spend our time typing, but you get the idea of what this would look like. This is where you can enter your analysis and feedback on what you found in the thermal images. I see a typo there. There we go, that's better. All right, and that brings us to our last area of the report, the measurement screen. Again, you select the report area that you want to work on. You look at what you're seeing in the report, the preview of what it will look like in the report as it is now, and then you can go over to your third panel, which is the area you can edit. So we want to add notes to our screen or to our report, and you can see the notes appear here down at the bottom. Maybe we also want to add the visible light image. So let's select that checkbox. Now that landed in the middle of the page, so we will need to reposition that. So we can click and drag that up next to our thermal image. And I think I said we have some extra extraneous information here. So let's delete the camera serial number and the DSP version. So we just go over here and we can deselect the serial number and deselect the DSP version. We may want to add the manufacturer, since it's us, Fluke. And if we scroll down, we can also edit the marker information that's visible. So our delta T is not getting populated, so let's go ahead and delete that empty column since it's not adding any value. I think I'm going to move the notes up a little since they're kind of down at the bottom. And maybe I want to move this down a little bit to separate out the photos. Once I've moved the elements of the measurements page around to where I want them to be located, and I'm done with all the changes that I need to make, I can click Apply. And last but not least, don't forget to save your report. And then click Save. From this screen, we can download the report, email the report, print the report, or delete the report. So we need to finally exit the report preview screen, which will take us back to our main report screen. And here we can see Fluke Connect Desktop Inspection Report, dated with today's date and time. And from here, we can download, email, or delete that report. That concludes the presentation for the first monthly Fluke Connect workshop. I will now be taking questions. Thank you everyone for your time, and I appreciate you attending.